Hello and welcome to the Neocera email discussion. Today we're going to talk about how you can create an email message and have that email message automatically be captured as a counseling session in your Neocera database. There's really two ways of doing this. First is you could create your email message and send it from the Neocera email interface, or alternatively you can send your email using your default email application. There's benefits and drawbacks for both of these options, so let's discuss them both separately. First, let's talk about emailing from Neocera. When you email from Neocera, one of the big benefits is the fact that we don't limit the number of recipients that you can send to at the same time. For example, you could send to 2 people, 20 people, 200 people, or 2,000 people, all from within the Neocera interface. The emails are going to be sent to the recipients with their email address into 2 fields, but every recipient will receive an individual email message. For example, as shown on the screen, if we have 16 recipients, then 16 separate email messages will go out with each of the recipients in the 2 field for their own message. They will not see anybody else's email address. But the benefit of including their email address into 2 fields is that we avoid the spam filters as much as possible. Often when emails include email addresses in the BCC field, they will be caught by the spam filter and put in the junk mail folder. So Neocera tries to avoid that by sending email messages with the email address in the 2 fields, but only one recipient's email address will be shown per message. Because we send the emails individually, it also allows us to introduce substitution variables in our emails. We'll show how this works in the demonstration momentarily, but a substitution variable can be used, for example, to insert a person's first name or even their formal name in the email message. And within the Neocera email interface, we can also decide how much contact time, prep time, and area of counseling needs to be assigned to every individual email message. These are all the benefits when emailing from Neocera. There's also a few disadvantages. One of the big disadvantages is that any emails generated from within Neocera are living only within Neocera. They are not going to be saved in your sent mail folder. And while Neocera does support attachments, we only allow you to include attachments if you're sending to less than 250 recipients. If you're sending an email to 500 people, then unfortunately the attachment feature is not available. Assuming that you've got less than 250 recipients, then a per attachment maximum of 5 MB is applied. If your attachments exceed the 5 MB maximum, then you will not be able to include them. Let's go take a look and actually see how the Neocera email interface works. Right here within my Neocera interface, I've created a quick query to find all woman-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned companies that are currently active in my database. You notice that there are 7 companies that I'm going to be sending an email to. So I can use the email capability right here in the upper right-hand corner. By clicking email, I'm presented with 4 options. I can either email the company email address for each of these companies. I can use the bid match email address to send to these companies. I could send my email message to the primary point of contact for each of these companies. Or I can include all the contacts for these companies and potentially go to more than 7 recipients. What I'll do for purposes of my demonstration is to email the primary point of contact for each company. Additionally, you can decide to exclude those individuals who've decided not to receive email correspondence from you. By checking this checkbox, it means that you will only send emails to folks that have accepted your emails. When I click continue, the Neocera email interface is presented. 7 companies, or actually the email addresses for the 7 primary points of contact for these companies are listed right here on the screen. Each one of these people will receive a message with only their email address in the to field. They will not see any of the other email addresses. They will only see their own email address, yet it will appear in the to fields. We can include the details. We're going to send them information about a workshop. And here we can see the little text that we'd like to include in the message. I've included one of our more commonly used substitution variables. This will say dear, and it will fill in presumably Mr. Miles here. So dear Miles, or for this person's email address, it will say dear Lorna. So each person's first name will be included there. How did I know to use this particular substitution variable? Well, we have a FAQ right here with all the substitution variables that are supported in our emails. So you can use any one of these substitution variables, include them in your emails, and they will be expanded when the email gets sent out. Now, of course, it is dependent upon the information being there. For example, I see right here the contact's home phone number. If you put in this particular substitution variable, but your clients don't have a home phone number listed in their records, then unfortunately Neocera will not be able to expand it. So you got to make sure that the substitution variable that you use is one that is very likely to be found in every single records. All right, I said that I did want to include an attachment, so I can include an attachment right here. And I'll include my flyer, which is included now in the workshop. So again, we're going to send this message out 7 separate times to 7 different recipients. If I choose to CC myself on this particular email message, then I will receive only 1 carbon copy. I will not receive 7 carbon copies. If you do wish to receive 7 copies of this email, because it's going out 7 times, then you can check this checkbox at the very bottom of the screen here where it says send a copy of each delivery to myself. In this case, that would mean that you will receive 7 copies of this email, once as it goes out to Fancy Closiers, one as it goes out to Clovis Cleaners, one as it goes out to Lambasol, etc., etc. All right. Because we want to capture this email message as a counseling session, we want to make sure we check this very last checkbox at the bottom of the screen as well. Checking this checkbox will ensure that a counseling session will be created for each and every one of these 7 individuals. We can choose the session type. In this case, I'm announcing a workshop, so it's probably an administrative session. However, if you want to make it be recorded as a follow-up session, you certainly can. You will need to choose whether this is reportable or non-reportable. By default, we will check off the non-reportable. In my case, it really is an administrative session, so I'm going to mark this as an administrative session. I'm going to identify the contact time for each of these clients. Presumably with an email, the contact time is how long does it take someone to read your email and the attachments. And I think on average it will take about 5 minutes to read my particular email and the attachment. The prep time that it took me to create this email will be the prep time allocated to every single client. In this case, we're going to create 7 counseling sessions because there's 7 recipients. So if I want to include the prep time, I have to be careful because 7 times the total prep time will be allocated towards me. So perhaps in this case, I don't want to allocate any prep time. I can identify the area of counseling. This is going to be managing a workshop or managing a business. Funding source can be identified. So when I click send, 7 separate messages will go out to 7 individuals. I will be CC'd once on only the very first email that will go out, and 7 counseling sessions will also be created at this time, each with 5 minutes of contact time and each with the appropriate area of counseling. I'm not going to hit send at this point because this is a demo database, but you get the idea. The alternative is to use your default email application. There are some number of benefits using your default email application as well. The biggest one, which is the drawback of using the Neocera email interface, is that the message will be saved in your sent mail folder. Attachments limits are set by your email application, and you may be able to send attachments that are bigger than 5 megabytes in size. So that could be a potential benefit for using your own email application. The email messages will be saved as counseling sessions only assuming when the email address that you're sending to is found in the database. But of course, we're using Microsoft Outlook or Mac Mail or Google Gmail. in these applications, there's no way to specify how much time did we spend on the counseling session, what area of topic does there need to be. So all this is based upon our preferences that we've got set up for each individual user. Let's go quickly take a look and see what our preferences look like. In the upper right-hand corner of Neocera, we see our own name listed here. In my case, I am the SBDC guest account. When I click on that and I choose preferences, all my preferences are listed on the screen. The ones I care about for email purposes are right towards the bottom. The ones that are associated right here at the very bottom of the screen apply to emails sent to the Postbox email address. Here is the Postbox email address that's been assigned to me as the user logged into the demo database. Whenever I email to this particular email address, these defaults will automatically apply. You can see that my contact time default is 5 minutes. My area of counseling default is managing a business. And by default, I'm going to make all the counseling sessions emailed to the Postbox email address as reportable. We'll take a look and see how this all comes into play momentarily. The Postbox email address that you've got under your preferences is unique to you. When you email a client, you can include that Postbox email address in the BCC line, and this will ensure that the message is received by Neocera. We can even include attachments, and in this case, the attachments will be recorded in the Neocera data stream, and a message will automatically pop up. Let's go take a look and see how this might work. Oh, first let's talk about some disadvantages. There's some disadvantages to using the Postbox email address as opposed to using the Neocera email system. A disadvantage might be that some of you may have limits in terms of how many people you can email at once. This is a limit set by your host organization. That's not a limit we've imposed upon you, but that's a limit to your email application. So that might be one reason not to use the Postbox email address. And when you do send to a larger group of recipients, then generally speaking, you are going to have to put their email addresses in the BCC field, which of course may increase the number of messages getting caught in the spam filter. So let's go take a look and see how this would work. I've got a client in my database, that's Colette's Coffee Shop. And I'm going to email this one individual. I'm going to email this person just by clicking on their email address. It opens up my default email application, which in this case happens to be Mac Mail. And I'm going to tell her about the same workshop. And I'm going to say, "Dear Karen, hope you can come to our workshop." All right. And I'm going to include my attachment, just like I would before. And what I'm going to do, most critically, is include that Postbox email address in my BCC file. This Postbox email address corresponds to the Postbox email address that was found underneath my preferences. When I email to this particular person, I'm going to send off my email. In about 10 seconds, a message will appear right here in the message center to let me know that a counseling session has been automatically added to the database based upon an email that was received. All I have to do is refresh the client record right here, and notice how a message has arrived in my message center. It tells me that a new counseling session was converted from an email with attachments. The subject line was workshop and the client is Colette's Coffee Shop. I can either hover over it and see the email message, I can edit the message, or I can just clear it out of the message center. So let's scroll down and find right here is the email that was sent to Karen Lovelace by myself, and the attachment is shown right here in the data stream. So all the information is nicely included in the data stream. All right. Recommendations. Generally speaking, emailing from Neocera works wonderful for larger lists of recipients. Again, it goes back to the benefits from the from emailing from Neocera, and that is we support an unlimited recipient list. And if recipients are going to receive the email addresses in the to field, but only their own email address will be in the to field. That's why we generally speaking recommend bulk mails to take place from within Neocera. Emailing from your default email application is ideal for one-on-one emails when you're having a discussion with a client and you have control over what email message gets recorded in the data stream and what message doesn't get recorded in the data stream. When your client emails you back, that message is not recorded in your client data stream because your client did not know that they needed to BCC the Postbox email address. However, when you respond to your clients and you add your counseling on top of that email message, that message can be recorded into the data stream. Thank you all very much, and hopefully this has given you a number of different options to consider when emailing into the Neocera database.